Hello everyone, this is Sino and I'm bringing you another Warborn video. This time around I'm farming Gutworm for Ancient Hearts because reasons, particularly so that I can craft more Elixir of the Ancients. Before I do that though, I'm going to go over some of the changes I made to the Warborn build itself, and then go offline on Steam while I'm recording. Items and skills wise, and then after that, while I do the actual farming, I'll be doing a QA with questions that you guys gave me. So first off, item wise, I swapped out Golemborn Greaves for these, which I think are pretty nuts in and of themselves. Crap load of resists on them in every capacity. Actually, I wonder if I have max slow resist. No. Alright. So the loss of Golemborn Greaves carried with it a loss of somewhere around 800 health after percent bonuses, and a little bit of damage because Golemborn Greaves give +3 to temper. This isn't the one that I used. This has lower health than the one I had. But I got a crap load of resists from making this swap. And a little bit of spirit, which I think let me free up a couple other things and still have stuff equipped. Nine Tricks made the suggestion that I use a Peerless Eye of Baronath instead of a Blood Rager's Gem, which I think is the wise call. This is a good idea for a couple of reasons. One, the Blood Rager's Gem only gives me +1 to Soldier, whereas the Peerless Eye of Baronath would give me +1 to Soldier and Demolitionist. This also gives me a crap load of offensive ability. I think more offensive ability. I think Blood Rager's Gem has some, as well as some crit damage on it. I don't really use the granted skill at all because I think it's pretty crap. But I do think this was a good idea. Nine Tricks also just suggested that I take a Reign of the Black Matriarch, mostly for the Venom of the Black Matriarch proc, for the -15% physical resistance, which is a flat physical resist reduction. Also for the attack speed and +2 to cadence on the item itself. I think this is a pretty good idea. I think it's had a noticeable impact on my overall DPS. I think it's a good call. I previously was using 2 pieces from the Valor set, I believe it's called, and swapping those out I lost yet more health and some offensive ability and some armor. Like, my armor rating is down from around 1900 to 1556. I also picked up this insane Veloth ring. It's nuts in every way. I don't use the skill bonuses at all, but I regained much of the health that I had lost from making the swaps of some items around. And what else? On my weapons, I changed the augment, but I don't remember the name of what I changed it to. I did this so that I could get a little more energy regen per second and a little more offensive ability, and still retain some health. I was previously using Trollwort powder, I believe, and I lost a little bit of health from this swap, but less than 100 per weapon. So, totally worthwhile, I think. And now my offensive ability is up to 2727. Which is very nice. My damage per second went up by around 1500, I think, sheet DPS, and that's before, proc buffs and everything. Right, skills wise, nothing changed in Demolitionist other than getting +1 to all skills in here, which means I could have 13 out of 12 Blast Shield and 17 out of 12 Vindictive Flame, but I don't think that's worth it in either respect. Blast Shield might be worth it, but it's not that much better. To get 1 point, it's only when you can get like 4 or 5 points over the cap in Blast Shield that it becomes worth it to do so. I lost 2 points in Temper, overcapped, from losing Golemborn Greaves. So that kind of sucks. That's a loss of around 100 flat physical damage, which doesn't sound like a lot, but because I'm a cadence build, which is all centered around percent weapon damage, that's kind of noticeable. But I gained 1 point in Flame Touched, which results in more offensive ability for me, which is great. And I just dropped something. Meanwhile, in Soldier, nothing really changed. I was able to free up a couple points here and there. I took another point in Military Conditioning to offset some of the health loss that I had incurred from item swaps. But really the only major thing is that I took Fighting Form, or not Fighting Form, Fighting Spirit, and got it up to level 8. So when this goes off, I have somewhere in the vicinity of 3000 offensive ability, which is nice. And it essentially goes off in every fight. So yeah, there's that. Because I didn't do a good job of going over my devotions last time, I'll do so now. There's nothing really too complex behind them. I should more describe what I didn't take rather than what I did take. I didn't take Olorin for a couple of reasons. One, the cost to do so is just way too ungodly high. The affinity requirement is way out of reach. If I tried to get this, I would just lose so much survivability in the process. And I don't think I really need the Blind Fury proc because it's an area of effect proc, and sure, it does decent damage, but I already have good area of effect clear. I'm really seeking out single target clear, and while this may help in a couple situations, I don't think I need it any more than anything else, like any more than all of this survivability crap that I have throughout the devotion tree. I didn't take Rowan Scepter, mostly because I think it's crap. Even though I could, because I'm using 2 maces, but I did take Behemoth, which is, kind of standard. I took 4 points in Toggle the Builder, which is kind of standard. I took 2 points here. I don't know why I really took the second point. I could probably lose this, come to think of it. But I like this point for the Poison and Acid Resist and the Energy, which I think is more valuable than it actually is, but that's a me problem, and so I could probably afford to lose both of these points, put them elsewhere. Panther for crit damage and offensive ability. Dire Bear minus the % physical damage because it's not all that much, because the rest of the constellation is awesome for this build. I have Maul on War Cry, so that every time I War Cry, I stun everything around me and deal a sizable amount of damage. And because War Cry reduces enemies' physical resist, this 4,000-ish damage is more than it appears. Speaking of reducing resists, I have Assassin's Mark on Cadence, and this goes off on essentially everything in every fight ever, which is nice. And it starts with War Cry and the Reign of the Black Matriarch, or whatever it's called. I think that's what it's called. Using these 4 points because they're amazing and this one sucks. I think these 2 constellations are amazing. This one less so. I mostly have it so that I can get to here. Really, the only major thing from this constellation is the Vitality Resist and the % offensive ability, but the rest of it is I can do without it. In fact, actually, how am I doing on... Okay, so I do need more Vitality Resist. I was thinking I could maybe lose this and then take 3 points here. Oh, but then I try and take Toggle the Builder. No, I need this constellation. This I'm taking for attack damage converted to health, attack damage converted to health, and attack speed and racial damage against the undead, all of which I think are great. This one, more Vitality Resist, which, I need, but I'm not a pet build, so I don't really care about that second stat. Resists, offensive ability, standard stuff, have a point here for 15 offensive ability, and I think it's the most efficient point for offensive ability that I haven't taken so far, but I haven't checked each individual star. I think it is. I might consider swapping these 2 points out to here. I think that might be worthwhile. Alright, that's the build, pretty much. Time to farm Gutworm. While doing so, time to play some Diablo 2 music. Oh wait, no, I swapped my playlist. And answer some questions. So, first question, and I got these out of order from how I'm going to be answering them. What I mean by that is that some people ask multiple questions, and I may not necessarily answer their questions in the order that they asked them, or I may answer one of their questions, go to someone else's questions, and come back, and that's because some of the questions between multiple people kind of tie into one another, and I want to kind of structure it that way. So, first question. Why am I trapped? Why do you sniff so much in your Warborn build YouTube video? This wasn't a serious question. I decided I'll answer it anyway, because what the hell. I had a cold for a week or so, and it's taken me a while to recover from it. I don't really know why. I'm still sniffing, even today, but I think I'm mostly healed from it. There's a hero, yeah. Yeah. Next question is, what am I going to college for? As I mentioned in my Warborn video that I was at college and my internet was crap as a result. I'm going to college for computer science, particularly computer security and networking. A little bit of software development on the side, which is the kind of the more practical thing, whereas the computer security, while certainly practical and what I hope to get a job in, is highly theoretical in my experience so far. I used to be a poli-sci minor, and then I discovered that the poli-sci program kind of sucks. So I just stopped minoring in that. Next question is, what is my favorite video game, other than Grim Dawn, if applicable? And it is entirely applicable, because Grim Dawn would probably be my favorite video game. It's a unique question to answer, because I have to decide between whether it's asking favorite video game or favorite video game series, because they're not the same. So I figure I'll answer both. My favorite video game that isn't Grim Dawn is probably Super Smash Bros. Melee. I've invested an unhealthy amount of time playing that game. Way more time than anyone really should. Buffs. Probably on the order of 6,000 or 7,000 hours. Play it daily for a couple hours. I love me some Super Smash Bros. Melee. Been playing it since I was a kid. But my favorite video game series that isn't Grim Dawn, if I can consider its solo title as a series, my favorite video game series is the Metroid series. I am completely in love with that series of games. Aside from Other M, of course, which I think everyone pretty much hates. I think it's brilliant, the story is amazing. It's fantastic in every way. Again, aside from Other M. Next question is, what is my favorite movie and my favorite book? My favorite movie comes down to a tie between two titles. One of them is the LA Confidential, which, if you have no idea what it is, it inspired the video game LA Noire, I believe is the title. It inspired that game, which again you may not know what that is. Great movie, would highly recommend it. The tie is between that and The Usual Suspects, which I don't even know how to describe if you haven't seen it, but other than to say you should probably see it, because it's really worth watching. My favorite book is Stephen King's The Dark Tower, Book 4, Wizard and Glass. Fantastic book, fantastic series all around. My second favorite book is probably the 7th book in the series. I'm assuming I didn't pass Stockholm's thing. Fantastic book, and the series itself is what inspired me to become a writer, as it happens. Speaking of which, what do I do outside of the PC gaming world? I write. As Stephen King inspired me to become a writer, and so I've been writing for several years now. science fiction is my genre of choice. I've finished a novel of sorts. I've actually finished a couple novels because too much free time, I suppose. And I'm presently trying to get published, alongside trying to find a job in computer science while handling schoolwork and stuff. And I must have completely skipped Gutworm's thing. Oops. So yeah, I write. It's good fun. Other than writing, focusing on schoolwork, trying to get a job, which, even though everyone says there's tons of jobs in computer science, it's not especially easy to find a job in computer science. Alright, next question. Why, in detail, do you love Grim Dawn so much? That's a large question to answer, I suppose. Not just because, you know, it was asked for in detail. Where the heck is Gutworm's thing? I want to make sure I get this. Okay. I think it's the culmination of a lot of things, really. Partially on the part of Grim Dawn as a game, and partially on the part of who I am as a person. I myself am a fairly creative individual, if I can get away with saying that. I like challenging myself to certain things, I like doing things in unorthodox manners, and Grim Dawn enables me to do that, and it takes advantage of those traits in me. I like coming up with unique and kind of unorthodox builds that, you know, no one's really thought to do, like the Maelstrom build, which eventually people figured out was pretty cool and it was eventually nerfed, or the War God build, or this Warborn build, which is, I suppose, is kind of like the modern day War God build. Those sorts of things which may or may not necessarily be the strongest builds in the game or whatever, but regardless of if they are or not, I still enjoy coming up with them and challenging myself with their uniqueness. And frankly, the easier a build is, like the more overpowered it is, the more boring I find it, and the less inclined I am to make a character like that. Which is why, at present, I'm kind of staying away from Witchblades, because they don't interest me. I think they're too strong at the moment, and I don't care for that. Whereas on, you know, there's a ton and a ton of stuff in Grim Dawn that's, you know, unique and interesting to try to come up with. And I really enjoy that. Meanwhile, just on the topic of Grim Dawn alone, regardless of me as an individual, it's a beautifully made game, and I think we as players are lucky that someone like Arthur Bruno decided to follow his dreams after the fall of THQ. We're so lucky to be able to play this game. It's beautiful in so many capacities. If you ignore, you know, technical limitations of the engine and some balancing squabbles that we get into here and there, it's a beautiful game to look at. It's a fantastic game to play. There's just so much I could praise about the game, and I think most of the people that are going to be watching this video, seeing as how the vast majority of my audience are Grim Dawn players, I think I would just be preaching to the choir on that end. Beyond all of that, though, there's also the fact that Grim Dawn, as a platform, is a great one for me to kind of carve out my little, I guess, corner of the internet. I'm getting really unlucky with Ancient Hearts. You know, it's been fun coming up with mods and stuff, and it's been fun teaching people how to play the game, playing with other people. It's been fun testing the game and offering, you know, my insight into the development of the game, and I've been partially, no, just not partially, but completely honored to be both allowed to do so and welcomed in doing so. Yeah, there's just so much about Grim Dawn that I think fits me as a person that it would be inconceivable, I think, for me to ever not love Grim Dawn. Alright, next question is, have I ever had the Taco Bell squirts? So before answering this and doing this session, I had to look up what that was, kind of regrettably. The answer, if you actually want it, is yes, but not from Taco Bell. I'm not really a fan of Taco Bell. I'm actually not a fan of fast food in general. I guess my tastes are too great for that. Alright, that's all the questions I received, and I can't say I was expecting to get 20,000 questions or whatever and make a video 14 hours long. But I'm satisfied with the questions I did get, and I'm satisfied to end this video on getting an ancient heart. This was fun, a small little video to kind of, get people to know me more, which I think is cool. I've gotten to know the community fairly well, I think, the community of Grim Dawn, and I've been glad to have done so, and I'm glad that I got this chance to kind of introduce myself for who I am. I'm going to keep farming. I hope you enjoyed this video as it was. I'll catch you next time, probably with more Warborn stuff, or maybe I'll finally make a video of my Venom Blade character, I'm not sure. Either way, take care, see you next time, have a good day and or evening.